Всім добрий день. Сьогодні четвер, і сьогодні, як завжди, у нас серія міні-вебінарів, які ми проводимо регулярно щочетверга. Сьогодні з нами пан Люк, і він із Замбії. І сьогодні він розповість нам трохи про цей напрямок, про країну фантастичну, що ми можемо там робити, коли варто приїжджати. І всі такі цікаві деталі ми постараємось тримати їх в межах півгодинки, щоб це було максимально корисно. І якщо нам знадобиться, ми можемо ще раз зустрітися іншим разом з паном Люком і поговорити про якісь інші аспекти, які ми не встигнемо сьогодні. Тож я передаю йому слово, він підготував для нас презентацію. Тема буде розкриватися англійською мовою, але в кінці я також вам зроблю підводку, про що ми говорили, щоб не втратити ці важливі деталі.
Okay, let me just give you a small introduction. I'm one of the owners of Klasiік Замбія, a owner-run and authentic safari business operating out of two of Zambia's best-known national parks, the Kafue and Lower Zambezi National Park. I'll just skip. So Klasiік Zamбія, our company is made up of Tuscan Main Safaris in the Lower Zambezi, Jeffrey McKeith in the Kafue National Park. We also have our own Musikesi Conservation organization that we started in 2017 in the Kafue National Park. And on the right-hand side, we have Real Nature. Real Nature is a wildlife documentary filming company. We worked with many well-known entities such as National Geographic and the BBC. Our most recent films that have come out of Zambia are the BBC Dynasty series featuring hyena and another series featuring cheetah. So that's also something that we do. Zambia. Zambia is not very well known outside of the main conservation and travel and tourism safari circles. It is probably one of Africa's best safari destinations. It has a lot of wildlife, amazing national parks. It's not overcrowded. 30% of Zambia is national park of the land mass. I'm only showing you here the main national parks and main destinations. Zambia is a landlocked country in southern Africa, just with neighboring countries, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Malawi, Namibia, and Angola. Why Zambia? Zambia is one of the safest countries in Africa. We've had 7 democratically elected presidents from different parties, and there's always been a peaceful transition. It's known throughout Southern Africa, along with Malawi, as one of the friendliest countries. The local people in Zambia are well known for their warm smiles and hospitality anyway. It has some of Africa's best safari guides. This follows a system of apprenticeship. Predominantly in Zambia, it takes about 5 to 7 years to get qualified as a fully qualified guide that can take safari walks or walking safaris, and also take canoeing safaris. And as Klasiік Zamбія, one of our main objectives is to train our own safari guides. So we have a very robust and well-established guide training system and program within our company. We actually have the first female safari guides due to come online, hopefully qualified in the next 2 years. They for the first stage of driving safaris, they started with us at our Musikesi camp just 2 months ago. Zambia has world-class wildlife. It's the best place in Africa to see leopard. The South Luangwa, Lower Zambezi, and Kafue national parks have a very high density of leopards. Some estimates reckon there are leopards every 2 square kilometers. We see a lot of leopard. It's also very good for wild dog. It's very good for lion and elephant, and buffalo. And yeah, the Kafue National Park, for example, has the widest variety of antelope species of any park in Africa. So a lot of very different antelopes are found in this national park. It has varied activities. So Zambia is a place that you can go, and from many of the camps, particularly the camps in the Kafue and Lower Zambezi, you can go on walking safaris, you can go on boating safaris, you can go on game drives during the day, night drives, and even canoeing. It's got different landscapes, from waterfalls to low valleys, to riverine forests. The Kafue National Park, the big one in the center of Zambia that you can see there, where we have our Ntemwa Musikesi camps, is 22,500 square kilometers. So it's huge. That's about the size of Belgium. Zambia is very well priced. On the first inspection, it looks very expensive, but if you look at the value that you're getting in terms of the different activities that you can do, the amount of animals that you can see, and the little people that you see, all of that with some of the highest quality safari guides in Africa, it's very good value for money. So we'll jump into the Lower Zambezi National Park. We have 2 camps here, and they are on the Zambezi River. Zambia is well known for authentic safaris, so very close to nature, not very fancy camps. This is our Kutali camp. We put it up in April and we take it down in November every year. It's very simple, but the emphasis is about being close to the animals. And this is our ethos with Klasiek Zambiya. We asked ourselves a simple question: why does somebody go on safari in the first place? We believe they go to see the wildlife. So the biggest difference we can make is the way we show them the wildlife, the guides that we give you, the places that we take you, and the way that we show you these. Either it's by walking, or it's by canoeing, or it's by game drive, or it's by boat. And this really brings you into this very amazing and natural environment. Our tents are very easygoing. They have warm and cold water, amazing game viewing. We see a lot of animals in the camp. They have flushing toilets. They have excellent beds. They zip up completely. All of our camps are solar powered, and there are radios in the room to be able to speak to our safari guides and to our management. This is a typical day in the Lower Zambezi. You go on a game drive in the right-hand side through this winterthorn forest. That's it's amazing game viewing. The center photo is canoeing. This is probably the best part in the world to go on canoeing safaris. Not many people realize that although canoeing was made famous in Zimbabwe, many of those original Zimbabwean canoeing safaris were happening in the Zambian side of the river. That's because there are these channels that are very good for game viewing. And then Zambia is the home of walking safaris. It is one of the main things that we do in Zambia. You can see there's a wildlife police officer at the front of the walk who carries a gun, and the safari guide is just behind him. And following up at the back is a trainee guide who takes tea and coffee along. The walks take between 2 to 3 or maybe sometimes 4 hours, and you see a lot of animals as well. This is a typical scene in the Lower Zambezi, a lot of leopard. Walking safaris in the Lower Zambezi is one of the best places in Africa to go. Why is that? You see a lot of big game, not just the small game and insects. It is also scenically very beautiful. And this winterthorn forest gives you a lot of shade in the heat of the African bush. And many of our clients that come from Western countries are not used to the heat, so this is a very good place to go on walking safaris. We have two camps, Kutali that I just showed you, and Chula. Chula is on an island. It has a very Robinson Crusoe feeling and very similar. Again, it's about game viewing, very good food, very simple facilities, but very good facilities. We do a lot of boat cruises. The Zambezi River is very famous for game viewing. The Chobe River in Botswana is also very well known, but it's very, very busy. The Zambezi River, you won't see many other people, but you will see a lot of wildlife. This is a typical guest experience and something that sums up what we wanted our guests to experience from the camp. We have a lot of wildlife in the camp, and we wanted to make sure that we designed our tents in such a way that the guests could enjoy such an experience of their own. This is the kind of safari luxury that we are trying to give to our visitors. It's not about gold taps and imported tuna steaks on the menu. It's about being able to experience this. So that's a typical sort of scene. We then have two other camps in the Kafue National Park that I'm going to jump to now. These are Musikesi and Intemwe Busanga camp in the north. As I mentioned earlier, the Kafue National Park is huge. It's the size of Belgium. It could be 5 different national parks in one, different landscapes, different areas. And Musikesi is our...
At Musikesi camp, we have an ethos of the more old-fashioned safari, where quality guiding by passionate people, on foot, by vehicle, and by boat is the emphasis. We pride ourselves on getting our visitors under the skin of this part of Africa. And whilst there is a huge diversity of habitats and wildlife, there is also a high density of the more iconic species too. When my colleague and friend Phil and I first came in to explore the area here, it had never seen tourism before. We had learned from the anti-poaching teams of a remote sector called Musikesi, only reachable at the time by boat. We were able to join them and explore the area ourselves on foot, and eventually found the site for our camp. Thanks to the diversity of activities on offer at Musikesi camp, it's both a wildlife enthusiast and a photographer's dream. The sheer amount of game makes for plentiful opportunities. The boat safaris in particular present exceptional angles, lights, and platforms to view and photograph on. Game drives get us close and personal to a whole host of exciting wildlife. And walking safaris, something that we offer proudly, get guests under the skin of the bush, smelling, touching, and seeing the sights and signs which are often missed by vehicle. The quality of wildlife viewing at Musikesi is exceptional, compares to any of the better known wildlife areas of Zambia and beyond. And what's more, you have the place to yourself. Musikesi camp is our home, and Phil and I and our wonderful team of staff take great pleasure and pride in sharing it and the story of this unique area with you all.
So that gave you a bit of an idea about our Musikesi camp. This is our oldest camp. It's been going for nearly, I think, 13 years now. But again, as you heard Tyrone speaking in the video, it's all about getting you close to nature. And the lucky thing for all of us is there's no other camps around, so there's no other people around where our Musikesi camp is. This is a typical day in Musikesi. We see a lot of wildlife in all of our camps. This is at breakfast one morning. There's a monkey's alarm calling in the background. So with this imagery that you're seeing, our camps are very authentic, and what we're trying to do is just get you the best possible wildlife experience that you can in a part of Africa that hasn't been touched and is as wild as it's always been. I'll just skip through because of time, but I can share this with you, Nadia, if you need. The kafuri is excellent for lion, also for leopard. We see a lot of leopard from the boat. And this is something that's very important to us. In 2017, we started our own conservation organization. We took money that has come from tourism to deploy it into anti-poaching, into research, and to help this area. To give you an idea of the size of the area that Musikesi Conservation is protecting, it is about the size of the Masai Mara National Reserve. And the research, the anti-poaching, and the conservation work that we do in this area has all been funded and started and supported through tourism. And this is, for all of us that are part of Klasiek Zambia, a very important part of our DNA. We want our tourists to understand what it takes to protect an area like this. We want them to understand that their stay in our camps contributes massively, not only to the employment of local people, but also to the actual hands-on protection of removing snares, or the very important aspect of research and seeing what a difference this all makes by counting the leopards, by identifying the leopards, or the wild dog, or the leopard. And this is something that our clients do take a part in and go and see whilst they stay with us. Our fourth camp and our last camp is on the Busanga Plains. The Busanga Plains are up in the north western tip of the Kafuri National Park, big plains area, very well known for big herds of buffalo, very big lion, and plenty of lechwe. It's probably the best place in Africa to see roan and sable antelope. And we have here a very small bush camp. This is, when I was growing up in Zambia, what 80% of the camps looked like. They were built in this way, and this is something that we wanted to continue. This is a small, intimate camp, very rustic, in a very beautiful area with amazing game viewing out on the open plains. We predominantly do game drives here because it's such a big, large, open area. And we have some of our best game viewing in the Busanga Plains. We also own our own aircraft, so we do move people around Zambia. This is a map of some of the flights. One of the biggest challenges in Zambia is getting from the different national parks that are spread around a country that is about twice the size of Germany, for reference. So we recommend highly these four national parks. They are the Lower Zambezi, the Kafuri, where we have our own camps, and we have recommended partners in the South Luangwa National Park And of course, you see at the bottom there, Livingstone, where the Victoria Falls are as well. So Zambia has a hell of a lot to offer, and we can organize your safari from A to B throughout Zambia. This is a comparison just of some of the prices for an all-inclusive stay. This is all you need, all of your food, drink, activities. The only money that you'd need to add on top of this is perhaps for a visa, or as tips, or to buy a postcard, or to buy a souvenir. I'll just skip through. Yeah, so that's a typical introduction, Nadia. I hope I've kept the timing okay. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer.
Yes, Luke, I would like to ask you more about seasons, because we more or less about Africa, but in Ukraine we have more popular Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa. Unfortunately, when we talk about Zambia, everything what can come up on the mind is just Victoria Falls, and that's it. So people don't understand that it's a huge territory, and it really like full of different activities and a lot of places to explore. So maybe you can guide what are the best time, maybe for different reasons there should be a different season, or how it works in Zambia.
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you. So we're used to being off the beaten track and only being recognized because of the Victoria Falls. What few people understand is actually how wild and how authentic the wildlife experience is. These areas are full of wildlife and very little people. The best season to go to Zambia is from May until the end of November, with a few exceptions. So that is the dry season. When the rainy season comes, because there's very little infrastructure or permanent roads, all-weather roads, it's very difficult to get to any of these areas where we have our camps or other people have their safari camps. So in May and June and November, those are the shoulder seasons. The prices are quite significantly lower, and not all of the camps in all of the destinations are open. From about this time of year as we're speaking right now, from June until the end of October, that is the high season. That's when most of the camps are open and accessible. To give you an idea, there's probably about 8 camps inside the Lower Zambezi National Park, and a large camp has 16 beds and a small camp has 6 beds. A normal camp in Zambia has between 10 and 12 beds. To give you some idea, a normal camp in South Africa or in Botswana has usually around 24 beds. So it's much smaller scales. The best ways to get to Zambia potentially are via the Gulf, so using Emirates via Dubai, Qatar via Doha, even Turkish Airlines via Istanbul, or to fly to South Africa and to connect up from Johannesburg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you just mentioned about the flight routes, but how is the situation with the roads and infrastructure in general in Zambia? Like, if people don't want to take flights, maybe they want to travel by car, or I don't know, how's the roads and how's the infrastructure in general?
It's a very good question. It's very difficult in Zambia because these places to go and see, these national parks, are spread out all over the country. To get from Lusaka to the South Luangwa National Park is a 10-hour drive on a very bad road. To get to the Lower Zambezi National Park, it's about a 7-hour drive, although it's just a third of the distance. It's only 120 kilometers in a straight line, but you have to take a long road around of 370 kilometers. So 95% of the tourists that come to Zambia fly into in small aircraft, domestic aircraft, into the different national parks, just because they're so hard to get to and so far apart, and driving becomes not so much better because you lose a day of your safari, and it's often not cheap either. There sometimes, if you're doing the Livingston, some people will drive from the Victoria Falls to Lusaka, but it's also about a 10-hour drive and not very exciting. So it's very difficult to compare the infrastructure in Zambia, even to neighboring countries, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and particularly South Africa. Driving on your own in your own vehicle is very common. In Zambia, it's not common at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I understand. And the last question for today, I think we described pretty much then. Zambia is the country where you mainly focus on the nature, animals, or it's interesting to come here also because of people, because of their culture, different tribes, or like, for example, in Eastern Africa, like in Tanzania, people most of the time come for safari. But for example, Western Africa, like Ghana, people like to come for tribes, for cultures, for different tribes. Like, how's about Zambia?
It's a very, very good question. Zambia is not, the normal tourist destinations are 80% about the safari.
Mm-hmm.
There's very few tribe festivals or anything like that that is very interesting to see. Culturally, there's in Zambia over 50 different tribes, and we have some amazing festivals and traditional ceremonies, but they are spread out across the country in areas that are very far away from where these national parks are. And going back to your last question about the road access, this is purely something that is underdeveloped. The amazing culture is there. The infrastructure to share that with international tourists is not yet there.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Well, about the roads, I can tell you in Madagascar, we also have long roads, like over 10 hours, and also not a good roads, but also quite challenging. Unfortunately, they don't have that aircrafts like you do.
Yeah, it's just, it's the way each country in Africa has developed its tourism slightly differently. And in Zambia, it's very much about small camps and very wild areas that are hard to get to. That's the predominantly the mainstay of tourism, apart from the Victoria Falls.
Okay, great. So let me switch to Ukrainian just to summarize everything what we just talked for half an hour, and we don't have questions anymore, so we can end up our webinar for today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Тож, друзі, ми закінчили на сьогодні. Я хочу трошечки підвести нас до того, що ми сьогодні поговорили. А саме, Замбія дуже маловідома країна, так? Тобто, крім Вікторія водоспаду, да, Вікторія відомого, у нас є ще багато парків. 30% території вона покрита національними парками. Це фантастично дуже досвідчені професійні гіди. Для них існує ціла система навчання. Це напрямок, в якому 80% цього, що ви бачите, більше присвячено природі. І це невеличкі кемпи на 6-10 ліжок, тобто номерів, так, зазвичай. Це маленькі, тут не буде великих черг людей, тут буде дуже багато природи, дуже персоналізований сервіс, тому що люди тут дуже привітні. І фантастичне місце, щоб побачити, наприклад, леопардів, побачити антилоп, побачити левів. І ви бачили з відео, як близько підходять тваринки до кемпу, і дивовижно бути в такій близькості до природи, до живої природи. Тож, сподіваюся, що ми трошечки зрозуміли, коли приїжджати, що очікувати від Замбії, і безумовно, що на нашому сайті ви зможете знайти більше інформації про Замбію, також програми на Замбію. І я хочу вас також закликати, якщо вам сподобалось це відео, було корисним для вас, ви будете дивитися це в записі на YouTube. Будь ласка, залишите свій коментар, що сподобалось, що ні, або якщо виникло запитання, підписатися, вставити подобаєчку, нам буде це дуже корисно і приємно знати. І до нових зустрічей на каналі Тревел Дизайнера.